Friends, namaste and welcome to our Sunday edition of uh, Words of Wisdom, Gyan Ganga on our Virat Hindustan Sangam social media channels. As you all know, that every Sunday we have this show at 8 p.m. Indian Standard Time, and people across the globe are watching this program live. We also have our Saturday edition of Nyay Gyan Ganga, Legal Words of Wisdom, where we discuss legal issues, and we have completed 20 episodes of that too every Saturday at 8 p.m. And today we have a very interesting subject and an interesting panel of people who will be discussing a very interesting subject, that is the PIL on the regulatory failures of RBI in controlling the various scams which have been taking place over the decades. We have with us for this show, as usual, our host and our president of Virat Hindustan Sangam, Dr. Subramanian Swamy. And we have two special guests today on our show. One is Miss Suchita Dalal of the Money Life Foundation, and the other is Dr. M.R.Venkatesh. As you all know, Suchita Dalal is an Indian business journalist and author. She has been a journalist for over more than 2 decades and was confirmed the Padma Shri for journalism in the year 2006. She was the financial editor of the Times of India, and she has been writing for various other newspaper publications from time to time. And as you all know, she was the person behind the exposure of the scam in 1992, which is popularly known as the Harshad Mehta scam. And she has written a book known as Who Won, Who Lost, Who Got Away. And based on the book, a new serial, 10-part serial, has just been, I would say, released on the TV platform, which is on Sony. Very interesting, Scam 1992, and it is worth watching. And you will come to know all the details of the Harshad Mehta scam, especially for youngsters who have been born in the last 2 decades, may not know the details. But if you watch this 10-part serial, you will come to know a lot of this scam. And from that, you will come to know what Suchita Dalal ji is all about and what she has been writing and exposing many of this corruption. She has been in the forefront through her Money Life Foundation, active on many issues, especially on regulatory issues and financial scams which are taking place in various sectors. And she has been always very vigilant, irrespective of which government is in power. She has been exposing and cautioning the people about these scams. We are very happy to have her on our program. Now, welcome Suchita ji. We also have with us another guest who has appeared on our program in the past, that is M.R.Venkatesh, who is a leading advocate on economic and criminal law, and he is based in Delhi and Chennai and perhaps all over the country. And you will find him in various shows on television channels every day, virtually debating or discussing various topics and issues. We are glad to have him, but I would just like to mention a few of his books which he has published. A handbook on anti-dumping, which was released in the year 2001. Monograph on capital account convertibility, published in 2006. Monograph on inflation, which was published in 2007. Global imbalances and the impeding dollar crisis in 2007. Sensex and Sentiment, Failure of the Indian Financial Sentinels, was published in 2011. And the last book, which was released by Dr. Swami in 2013, was Dr. Manmohan Singh, A Decade of Decay, was by the publishers, Rare Book Publishers. These are some of the books. So we have two eminent people along with Dr. Subramanian Swamy on our show, and it is going to be an interesting discussion on the PIL. Dr. Swamy and his associate Satya Sabarwal has filed in the Supreme Court on the failure of Reserve Bank. I also thank my co-host Ramesh Swamy and Professor Arvind Chaturvedi for Delhi for their daily inputs and hosting this program together. I also thank our technical team led by Ashish Shetty, Tejas from Pune, Swaminathan from Chennai, Rakesh Gadgi from Karnataka, Ishwar Iyer from Navi Mumbai, and Vishal Mehta from Mumbai for their technical and other commercial support for putting this program together. So with this, it is over to Dr. Swami for his introductory remarks, and then we'll have a discussion on the subject, the failure of the Reserve Bank in controlling the scam. Over to Dr. Swami.
Thanks, Jagdish. It's a great event for us today. There are two very eminent people, one in the legal field and, of course, a chartered accountant, the other an author, thinker, crusader. I remember once I think one of the stock exchanges filed a defamation case against her, and she not only won, but she made them pay. I never asked her how much, but she deserves every penny if of that, because it was an attempt to crush her, and it happened. The exact opposite happened. So she's. I don't want to call her a dragon lady, because nowadays the Chinese are not very popular, but still she's very fierce and very determined, and in a very difficult situation. And Harshad Mehta and all these people were ruling the roost. She took them on and exposed them, and she has continued to do so. And therefore, first of all, we welcome you, Sucheta ji. We are expecting a lot, and there's a lot of interest, audience interest also. And of course, our Venkatesh, who's now emerged as a lawyer, and he has been my mentor as far as this matter is concerned, because it's all very complex data. He put it all together, and it's we are waiting for the Supreme Court to list it. I suppose during Corona they may not list it, but anyway, we are ready for it. And what it is all about, basically, the core is that there was a Reserve Bank was regarded as a kind of a sacred cow. Nobody could, touch it, at least in India. And therefore, we now find that in every scam in the banks, the board of directors of those banks had Reserve Bank nominees, perhaps one or two, and they could have. They are equally responsible. And now the Reserve Bank then starts giving lectures on NPAs and so on. So a variety of misdemeanors, and in fact, at one stage when Raghuram Rajan was governor, he wanted to introduce Islamic Bank in India. Fortunately, I went to court and had got a court decision earlier when the Kerala government tried to set it up. So I mean, the Reserve Bank is actually a den of all kinds of operators. And some of them, I think, I need not mention the name, but they are good friends of Venkatesh also, and they are on the board. So therefore, this is an exciting topic, and it's a new thing. For the first time, we are saying the banks are not only at fault, but the Reserve Bank is equally culpable. And so, what extent and what the petition is all about, and then, of course, we are now supplemented by a person who, namely Sucheta, who can give us a wider perspective on this issue. And so, over to Sucheta first, ladies first. No, is that the correct order?
Yes.
Okay. So, over to you, Sucheta.
Thank you very much, Dr. Swami. Very kind remarks. And I must again place on record this immense help that we got from you on the NSC defamation case. And there was 50 lakhs, but 47 lakhs correctly went to 2 hospitals to help the poor. So we got 3 lakhs. But, without your help, it wouldn't have been possible at all. And I'm very excited about the fact that you have filed this petition, and I hope it gets heard properly for 2 reasons. One is that when someone of your standing files a petition like this, I'm hoping that the courts will give it a different treatment, because we have noticed that all the time, whenever cases are filed against the RBI, the courts are in awe of the regulators and government. And so it starts with this sort of inherent advantage that organizations like RBI get. And I think having someone like you on the other side is going to be this big countervailing force, and it will probably have a much different sort of reception and hearing. And so I'm hoping that this time is going to be something different. Now, another reason why I've been so keen on this is that, I looked at the RBI closely in 92 when the Harshad Mehta scam happened. And several of the issues that are raised over here came up at that time. So one, first of all, that RBI operates out of an ivory tower, is not in touch with anybody. Then it sits on the boards of banks. This has been an issue that's going on from 92, because even with State Bank of India, that is the issue that came up, that you had a deputy governor sitting on the board. What were they doing? What did they know? Did they know anything at all? Then there was a whole discussion on two things. One is that the Department of Supervision should be independent, and it should not be part of policy making, so that it can act independently and take severe action. This was eventually scuttled in spite of a discussion in the Joint Parliamentary Committee, and it's now 30 years. You've had so many problems after that. So RBI is so powerful that it manages to ensure that nothing touches it, and it continues in the ivory tower. So this is just one of them. So Department of Supervision is not independent. The second discussion that happened is that, yes, RBI is a monetary authority. It should not be subject to the same CVC and CAG and everything else. So should we have a sort of split in its roles, and it should not have supervision under it, so that one part of RBI can actually be under CAG, under RTI, under vigilance? Why should they not be accountable? So because we refuse to split them, and various governors, they come straight from the finance ministry, have the power to influence people. And I don't think too many people, unfortunately, in Parliament understand issues and think it through. So that has continued. Then we had the Right to Information Act. There it is even more egregious, because RBI not only did not subject itself to RTI, but on a whole lot of issues, there were 10 decisions of the Central Information Commission which went to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court ruled that the RBI must give out this information. RBI ignored it. A contempt petition had been filed, and these are very eminent RTI activists who filed them. But this is when I say that someone like you is going to make a difference, because RBI has not bothered who's on the other side. When petitions are filed in, say, Punjab and Maharashtra Cooperative Bank also, if you ask me the manner in which the issue was dealt, essentially the court said, look, the RBI is on the other side. It knows everything. And who are you guys? You don't understand. RBI knows everything about supervision and did what it had to do. How can you have, when banks are failing all the time? So you had, in cooperative banks, you had the excuse, which has been fixed now, that there was dual supervision. But do you know that even in currency, and I know that you have paid a lot of attention to the algo scam that happened at the NSE, but one of the whistleblower letters, the fourth one, was about currency exchanges and how there are issues over there. Now, currency again is regulated by RBI and SEBI. It's identical to cooperative banks. So when you have dual regulation, I don't think they have even bothered to investigate what the whistleblower said in the fourth letter about currency exchanges. Now let's come to whistleblower letters themselves, where RBI knew about, because your petition has named 10 cases and talks about specific failures. So ILFS has been one of the biggest ones recently. 3 sets of whistleblower letters go to the Reserve Bank governor. One goes from a whistleblower who is a friend of the governor's and a classmate of his in IIT Delhi. It's ignored. One goes from an institution based in Mauritius, which is an investor in ILFS companies called Adica. RBI looks at it, asks a few questions to IDBI and says, we are sorry, we cannot intervene in this. It's as outrageous as that. The third thing that happens is that there are findings of the inspection report, and ILFS does not act on them at all. So the Serious Frauds Investigation Office actually has asked RBI, conduct an internal inquiry and find out why they did not act on your own inspection report. Nothing has happened on this. It's 2 years since the ILFS thing. We've given an extension to this committee that's heading it. It's public money. No one's accountable because nothing has happened. The fourth was an anonymous whistleblower a pseudonym, where the board, the entire board of all, not just the main board, but all his main subsidiary boards got a copy of the whistleblower. And an eminent director had the temerity to tell me that since we don't know who the whistleblower is, we ignored it. Now, you can ignore the whistleblower, you have to check the facts, isn't it? So, my point is that ILFS has been one of the most egregious cases. If this is your attitude and you will not check on it, I mean, what is the point in having a supervisor at all? And how long can the country pay the price of RBI failures? Because the minute there is a failure, the same RBI turns into the inspector and starts cracking the whip and finding people. This is ridiculous. You can't sit on the board of banks and then suddenly turn into a investigator where your people at the board are at the very senior level. So these are just a few opening remarks I would like to make, because I know that Dr. M.R.Venkatesh has done a lot more work on it, and I'm sure everyone wants to hear from him. Thank you.
We've also wanted to hear from you. In fact, you can see from the greetings of the audience, you may not have seen, a lot of people have thanked you for coming. So, and of course, Venkatesh is also, I can say, my mentor in this subject. So he had a lot to do. He had a lot to do in helping me write that petition. So maybe you can first tell us also, I mean, in your own sequence, what this petition is all about and what's the prayer, and in whatever sequence you want to, but please tell us about this problem that Sucheta has just now very beautifully brought out in simple words.
Yes. As a chartered accountant first and then as a lawyer, I've always been bewildered by one single fact, that there is so much of scams around, so much of bank failures, so much of regulatory failures, but never once did CBI ever visit the RBI and call even the security personnel for an investigation. This is the, Mahabharata, there is a Yaksha Prashna, where Lord Yaksha questions Yudhishthira 108 questions, which are supposed to be the most scintillating questions. If you were today alive and you were going to ask Yudhishthira, he would have the 109th question. The 109th question is, despite so much of scams, Yudhishthira, despite so much of bank failures, Yudhishthira, tell me why is it that the CBI does not touch the RBI? Now, part of the answer came from Sucheta ji when she made her opening remarks. The judiciary, the administration, the entire set of people don't understand economics. And monetary economics, or you throw some jargons like currency management or any of these high-flying terms. Then you have the FRBM targets. Nobody knows even what is the full form of FRBM. So all these things fly by their side. So rightly, as Sucheta ji says, judiciary thinks that RBI knows everything. Why go and touch the beehive and make a fool of yourself? So let the sleeping dogs lie. Let us not touch anything. And CBI also thinks that we have anyhow got hold of the lower level people. We have got somebody there, some chowkidar here or a assistant manager there. Why did you open the bank? You go and finally catch hold of a security fellow. Had you not opened the bank at 10 a.m., this scam would not have happened. So you catch hold of the poor fellow and hang him by the nearest lamppost. And everybody is so happy that we have seen one security fellow being hanged. But 30 years of experience as a professional now has shown me one fundamental thing, that when you go through the Banking Regulation Act, when it comes in case of banks, and RBI Act when it comes in case of the NBFC, you find that RBI is not a soft touch regulator, but it's a hard touch regulator. In fact, I use the phrase to Dr. Swami to say that virtually the Banking Regulation Act makes the RBI the alter ego of the bank management, and bank management is the alter ego of RBI. In fact, they are so intertwined, interlinked, interdependent. And in fact, we did, for this particular RBI, when Dr. Swami asked us, we did go through the entire RBI Act and catch hold of all the returns that a bank files with RBI. I was shocked, and in fact, I had a discussion with Professor Vaidyanathan of IIM, and he was also shocked to know that banks in the aggregate file somewhere around 243 or 244 returns every year. That could be something like daily, that could be something like weekly, something fortnightly, monthly, quarterly, half yearly, yearly, something could be biannual, something could be that you do as and when it arises. For example, a fraud. But yet, there are, and as Sucheta ji rightly pointed out, there are bank RBI nominees sitting on the bank boards, not only sitting on the bank board, sitting on the committees which actually disburses large loans. And despite all these things, suddenly it is like the police in a Hindi cinema, appearing in the 15th reel and then saying koi hilna nahi, which is equivalent to your freeze orders under 45. And then say that koi hilna nahi, and as if they don't know anything. I'll give you a classical case, and on which I think I did have a brief discussion with Sucheta ji also on this. Everybody was shocked, everybody was surprised that Malaya had actually pledged the Kingfisher bird, the Kingfisher logo, to the banks. Okay. And it was actually a picture of a bird. And that was the collateral or the security offered to the bank to extend 800 crores loan. If my memory serves me right, it is 800 crores. Now, forget the quantum. It was taken in as a security. Now, all of us knew and we were laughing our guts out. Probably it was because of political pressure. Probably it was something that was happening because of a variety of other reasons. But what was RBI doing as a regulator? RBI, please understand, monitors, directs, inspects, audits, appoints external auditor, gets so much of return. It's hands-on. Now, they don't have to read the next morning Economic Times or Business Standard to understand that Malaya has pledged the Kingfisher bird. It can be news to Dr. Swami and M.R.Venkatesh, who are not in the board of those banks. But definitely not for RBI and right through the hierarchy, who knew very well that so-and-so was pledging and passing off something and getting a loan for 800 crores. And this was perhaps a stunning revelation that the RBI was sleeping at the wheels. If this is what RBI is doing, we don't jolly well have RBI. We can close down regulation. In fact, entire banking regulation has become an ornamental piece of legislation. And if let me put it this way, because there may be some people who may not understand the technicalities of all this. Let us assume there is a multi-storied building and you have various floors getting looted. But you have a security sitting outside, and the security is supposed to be guarding the building. But you go and catch hold of every single flat owner and say you have been party to the loot. But the security fellow happily whistles and pontificates all of us as to what is to be done, what is not to be done. I think the primary suspect in all the cases will be the security person, not the other way around. Here in this country, RBI has been held to be holy cow. No questions asked. Nobody puts them to scrutiny. That is why Dr. Swami's PIL has come a day not too soon. I think 30 years of liberalization meant regulators have to play their role as regulators. Unfortunately, we don't have properly trained regulators in economics, on monetary policy, on several other things, on banking. We have people who have quacks, we have pseudos, and all those people who have unfortunately managed to worm their way into the RBI. And even Raghuram Rajan, he's not an economist, he's a financial expert at best. He can't be called as an economist like Dr. Swami. And so these people have somehow or the other managed hoodwink the system and somehow get on top of it. I think RBI requires cleansing top, bottom, left, right, center. And I think a PIL is the first step. And the prayer in the PIL is we have just taken 10 major scams. And there are people like Guru Raghavendra Bank, there are several people who are so sore that Dr. Swami has not included their name in the list of scams. All I can tell them is, it is not, we had a cutoff. We had a cutoff that you must be of a particular pedigree of 1,000 crores, 2,000 crores. And now we didn't want to include all and sundry into this. Otherwise, the list would be too big. So that is why we have not been able to accommodate several. Just 10 major cases. And 10 major cases, because of a variety of reasons, it is one of a particular genre we have taken and we have tried to put in. I think 6 or 7 have been investigated, or 8 have been investigated by CBI. 2 or 3 has been investigated by the respective EOW of the state police. So we have called all of them together, and we are trying to say a simple thing that RBI, this is not a PIL against RBI. We are filing a PIL against CBI, and to say that CBI must investigate RBI. RBI is only a pro forma party. It is number 2 respondent. Number 1 is the CBI. So CBI has to come about and explain to the court why it thought for the last 30 years RBI should not be investigated in any scam, and that's the prayer all about. So I leave it to Dr. Swamy to continue.
Well, first of all, I don't know whether you know. You should know as a Tamilian Venkatesh that this present governor was an officer in Chennai,
Commercial
part of the government. Huh?
I think commercial tax office.
Yes, something like that. And he has corruption cases still, which are pending, in the sense that they're not been acted on. And in finance ministry also, he had to go. I don't know how he suddenly emerged in the Reserve Bank. See, so this is one. Second, for the audience, I think both you and Sucheta could give us some idea as to what is Reserve Bank. I mean, what's its scope, what's its what its objectives are, what role did they play in their demonetization, for example, or didn't play. So if you can give these three, because I've got questions from the audience also, saying that they would like to know something about it. Of course, they also want to know what Chidambaram did to sabotage it, and so on. Those are, you can have it right at the end. But right now, we just want to understand what is RBI and what does it stand for, how its tentacles reach into every bank and therefore responsible for it. Both of you, and which one would you like to go first?
Sucheta ji, you can go ahead. No problem.
Okay, so in a nutshell, the problem why this happens and why the CBI has never reached RBI is because of its dual role as a monetary authority. And as a country, I think, we've seen the battles, for instance, when Chidambaram was a finance minister with various RBI governors. So there's a big concern everywhere that if CBI and other agencies, and especially politicians and the finance ministry, are able to act in a ham-handed way against the RBI, then we are going to be in serious trouble, and which is true. So I think the problem lies in the fact that you're not willing to separate these two roles, which most other countries, including the UK, have done. So you need to separate the role of supervision, banking supervision, or it's not just banks, they supervise NBFCs. At the moment, you have this whole loan app scam. It's not directly under RBI, so they will not look at it. So I'm going to stick to the supervision part. And I'm fully with people who say that in its role as a monetary authority, the RBI needs to have a separate person who heads it, who understands economics, and who is able to stand up to the finance ministry and retain his independence. The way to deal with it is to split them into two. And this has been a discussion that's going on for over 30 years in this country. But by not doing it very conveniently, you bundle the supervision to the extent that all kinds of bills that are paid. In the 90s, I began to get information on the kind of expenses passed by deputy governors and governors, which are never questioned because there's only an internal audit in the RBI. Nobody asked. Saris bought for a wedding and stuff like that was being passed. And all senior RBI officers will tell me that it continues to this day. And it is scandalous. I mean, why will you not have a statutory audit? I also think that, the country was a lot more innocent in 92. None of us had anything. We didn't even have fancy cars. There were 3 kinds of cars. Over the years, as this difference between the rich and poor has increased, the greed level. So there was a time, I think in 92, when everybody said, RBI officers are well paid. It's a cadre, don't touch them. Don't even get into issues of supervision. They're fine where they are. And they are, by and large, honest. I think it's time to question that as well. Because one of the things that I have noticed is that there have been senior people in 92 who used to even give me inspection reports, which one is not supposed to publish. I used to go ahead and publish them. Nobody stopped it. Today, not a single person in the RBI is willing to blow a whistle on anything. There are no whistleblowers anymore. And according to me, this happens because suddenly, they have sons, daughters working in private banks, foreign banks. Nobody, forget about the CBI and statutory audit. There is not even a declaration that is asked from RBI officials. How many of you have brothers and close relatives? Global Trust Bank is a great example. If you look at whether there were people connected with the RBI, yes, there were. You look at every other bank, there are senior people whose sons and daughters are in foreign banks, get the choicest postings, even when they are working, say, in an ICICI or something, they get postings of will. And all this is an influencing factor, because when inspection, the other thing that I have done in my 30 years of journalism is, looking at inspection reports. A lot of time they came to me as leaks. I remember there was an inspection report of IndusInd Bank where it was diluted, so that somebody had data pulled out from the system and shown it to me, which showed how every time the first inspection report was very tough, then the bank starts talking to the inspector. The next version is diluted. The third version, so there were 9 versions. The 9th version was a much softer version than the first one. Then the inspection report goes to the deputy governor, who calls the chairman for discussion. It gets diluted completely at that level. Then there is some ineffectual little, slap on the wrist kind of punishment, and everything is buried, because they have the excuse that, and again, correctly, they have the excuse that you don't want to create a scare. You don't want to go public with problems every time. But then you have to act. You can't bury it. There has to be some form of oversight where, at least maybe after a scandal happens, if there isn't an investigation, a few heads don't roll. So you want to keep something a secret beforehand, maybe one is willing to understand it. But if an ILFS happens, if a Kingfisher failure happens, then if you tell me that heads will not roll, we did not know, we will not check, I think there is a serious problem, because what then is the check on people? So I think when people are asking what is the role of RBI, if you look at, I told you the Harshad Mehta scam, where the whole public debt office was Stone Ages. They were doing manual registers when everyone else was, putting money into brokers' accounts. The Ketan Parekh scam happened. RBI was regulating overseas corporate bodies which were registered in tax havens with $5 capital. And RBI was clueless. Money was moving in and out of it. RBI had no clue. After it happened, did anyone question RBI officials to say, did you know? Did you ask? Did you know how many were there? No, because RBI is suddenly sitting as the investigator saying, we found this out. But damn it, you were supposed to regulate it. You were the ones who gave it permission. How can you suddenly say we are discovering this? You can't be doing a discovery at that stage, right? So it's happening with ILFS also. So you have, sacked the board of directors. You've got no time frame. You put people. You spend 100 crores on a bunch of consultants and lawyers, and this can go on for another 20 years. And I'm not joking. It can go on for 20 years if the special court, under a Special Courts Act set up in 92 to try scam-related offenses, continues to hear scam-related cases to this day, 30 years later. I think this new board in ILFS may continue for the next 30 years spending public money. There is nothing finite. And who is the one who's going to decide all this? It has to be, the RBI, if it is independent, or the finance ministry. Nobody understands anything. Nobody wants to question any regulator. So they're a law unto themselves. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, well, no, I have one question, or rather 2 questions. One is, you're saying that there is no financial function of any institution at the public level where RBI does not have a say. Is that one? Second is, you said RBI should have an economist, but Urjit Patel had a PhD on banking from Yale, and he couldn't stick it out. Do you have any idea why he couldn't stick it out?
So 2 things, Dr. Swamy. One is that, he was an economist. I think if you look at the books written by the past three RBI governors, starting from Venu Reddy to Subbarao to Urjit Patel and Raghuram Rajan, all of them focus on only one aspect of their role in RBI, which is the managing the interest rates and their role as a monetary authority.
Monetary policy.
Almost as though banking supervision is not part of their portfolio at all. In fact, when Dr. Sura was around, yes, 2008 financial crisis had happened, but his book doesn't have a mention. And that is the precise time when the All India Bank Employees Association had a strike, had sent him a letter saying, enough of this loot. Look at where bad loans have reached. They had reached 8 lakh crore. And they said, stop this loot. That was their slogan. There's not a word in his book. Does that tell you what his perspective is? So Urjit Patel, maybe as an economist, okay, and again in that role also as an economist, they're at war with the finance minister all the time.
Right.
Could not take the pressure, right? So my point is that if you already are in a tough enough role as the monetary authority, yes, that will be independent. That is tough. As you said, Dr. Urjit Patel couldn't take it anymore. But at least take away supervision from there, because you're not even paying attention to it. And I think the proof is this: last 4 governors who have written books don't have a word to say on what they did in supervision, what they have done on grievance redress, what they have done on any kind of accountability, and everything from foreign exchange, currency management, cooperative banks, every single thing is RBI first to give permissions. I mean, I'll tell you something really funny. Money Life, they're sitting on a huge amount of money, over 4,500 crore, which is public money, which is money that is not claimed by depositors. So interest and unclaimed accounts have been pooled, and RBI is in charge of it. Its acronym is DEF, Depositor Education Fund, Awareness and Education Fund, correctly DEF. They asked NGOs to get an accreditation. They put us through such a grilling, including doing these secretive little checks on whether our accounts were fine, that I said at the end of this, you should have given us a banking license rather than accreditation. After having done all this, they do not part with any money. They're getting film stars to come and do awareness. Now, our point is awareness is important. This is our money, okay? This is public money. This is not RBI's money. This is not the government money. This is depositors' money. They are not even accountable for what they do with that. They will not explain, and they will not use it for grievance redress. Because when people are losing money to digital fraud, people are losing money to Chinese loan apps. In fact, if you remember, the whole microfinance was under them. India is one of the few countries which has a usurious interest act to control money lenders. That has a cap of 30%. Every microfinance company got top lawyers, found a way to put various costs so that interest rates were actually as high as 70% to the poorest people, until there were suicides and it blew up into a scandal and people didn't pay. RBI was sleeping. Then who jumps in? They suddenly become the regulator, appoint a Malagam committee and begin to clean up. Nobody is asking them, what were you doing until it reached that stage? Today, we are in this exact same situation on Chinese loan apps. People are committing suicide. So until a bunch of politicians then say, okay, stop paying them, we'll see what they do. Then RBI will appoint a committee and suddenly it is the regulator, it is the supervisor, it will punish a few people. How can this go on? And this is going on at least for the 35 years that I'm a journalist and I'm looking at it.
Well, just add one more before I go on to Venkatesh to find out his reaction. See, you are right about the Reserve Bank governor knowing economics. And as Venkatesh pointed out, or you did, that Raghuram Rajan was not an economist. He was a business manager. He got an IIT degree and then he went into business management. Now, you see, this interest rate you said is these people, the Reserve Bank governors, think that's their main job. Even there, if you don't know economics, Raghuram Rajan went on raising the interest rates, saying that I want to control inflation. But in the process, the cost of capital for all the medium and small industries, skyrocketed, and most of them were declared bankrupts. the whole MSME has been ruined by these high interest rates. So, not knowing the macro aspect, that has been the bane, in fact, in all our Reserve Bank governors. And so, I fully agree with you, and I think what to do. If the problem is that people in political authority don't know economics either, so it's difficult to put it to them. Maybe Venkatesh has some solutions on how to straighten Reserve Bank. Yes, Venkatesh.
Doctor, I will again go back. The last 10 years, whenever you had a cup of tea in any of these hotels, say in Trident or Oberoi or any of these hotels, you know very well for a fact that S Bank, you can bribe your way to glory. PMC was going down. Lakshmi Vilas Bank was going down. It all required no regulatory knowledge. You don't have to get returns. Everybody was talking about it. You knew Kingfisher was going down. You know Jet Airways was going down. You knew India's NPA scam, which was brought about by a gentleman called Ashish Gupta in 2012 in the Credit Suisse report, which you have perhaps used it in one of your PIL also.
Yes.
Then RBI itself has got a set of regulation or a data compiled which says how much of top 3,000 companies are earning and whether they are earning enough to pay interest. All this is public knowledge. It is not something that is, suddenly one day Malaya doesn't come, loots a bank and goes away to London. It's not something that Jet Airways, which was flying at 38,000 feet, suddenly crash landed and into the Sahara airport. No, nothing like that, Sahara airport. So these are all things that had happened in slow motion, in glacial pace for the last 10 years. And the only regulator who was privy to all these from, on a real-time basis was the RBI. And you had economists, you had IAS officers, you had financial guys, you had, and as Sucheta ji rightly points out, that there has been too much of emphasis, right or wrong. We are not experts on that. Whether they have managed or mismanaged the monetary policy, we will set it aside for the moment. But we are talking today about the role of RBI as a banking regulator. The RBI performs yet another role as a financial foreign exchange, manager of foreign exchange of this country, and also manages the NBFC. So we are looking at RBI Act and Banking Regulation Act insofar as it pertains to management of banks as a regulator. The regulatory role has probably been ignored, as Sucheta ji says, and in my view, it has been criminally negligent. I think there has been a criminal negligence that is palpable. If you join all the dots and look into it, that you fail on regulatory, you fail on monitoring issues, you fail in appointing audits, you fail when you do an audit. There is a colossal failure out there, and at every step you see that the stench was emanating, and it was so powerful from all these corporate houses. You don't require to be a Sherlock Holmes to find it out. All that you could have done is step in at the right time. Unfortunately, in all these cases, we see that it is not happening. And I may say this with some amount of, I have not done a tabulation, but probably if some time is there, I can do it also. Whenever the IMF or the FATF comes with some sort of a report and tells RBI that there is a shortfall here, RBI immediately comes out with a notification circular plugging the loophole. In other words, there is no independent thought process within the RBI that we will plug the loophole on our own self. If somebody points out, you do, it's good enough. But what I point out is that at no point of time RBI does all these things suo motu. So there is a tremendous paucity of talent, and this manner of managing the banks with now it has become Chacha Batija type of situation where people's Chacha and Batija are working in some private sector banks, and
that's what she said.
it's common knowledge. It's common knowledge that what is happening in some of the courts, it's happening in RBI. And Chacha Batijas are quite common within RBI. And there is no declaration, there is no way, there is an audit, there is no oversight. Yeah. Sir, I can tell you, apart from the Supreme Court, it is the only institution without an oversight body. So probably after your PIL, and probably if the wisdom draws on the government in the discussion that we are having today, is that RBI may have independence, but needs also an oversight body. And I'm told some of these countries, in fact, that could be true for even SEBI, that could be true for IRDA, many of these regulators think they are Lord, Masters, Judge, Jury, Prosecutor, everything themselves. And there is not enough judicial mind which can scrutinize their actions and put things into proper perspective. So as Sucheta ji mentioned at the outset, that there is a default position that RBI is right. So that is why, fortunately, unfortunately, we have to have a Subramanian Swamy to come in to counter that particular narrative, that here is a man who knows economics, here is a man who understands banking, here is a man who has seen right through his life. So unless you go and don't explain to the Lordship about the pitfalls that this country is facing, see, bank failures is now no longer a distant one that happens once in a decade. It's happening with unfailing regularity within. Now today, who is to be responsible? And all this, sir, is hard-earned middle-class money. The savings rate of this country is so high at 30%. It lends itself for being looted this way. We are making a maximum assault on our hardworking, sincere, tax-paying middle-class people who are putting their hard-earned money, and RBI is whistling away to glory. And probably the second stage of this particular PIL, the climax of this, should be an oversight body. Need not be a sitting or a permanent body. Probably once in 3 years, it can take under a Supreme Court judge or some persons of eminence to look into the functioning of 1 year on RBI, probably 1 year on SEBI, the third year on IRDA, PFRDA, and other things, and come back on the fourth year to RBI. Unless we look into this functioning and have open hearing, like what Sucheta ji says, that saris for wedding gets passed in as expenditure for RBI. This is outrageous, scandalous, to say the least. And if this is the level to which we have brought down RBI, I shudder to think how we are going to manage economy, because management of economy is not in the North Block. There is a Mint Street that is a very important player in management of the economy. And if this is the competence, and this is the criminal negligence that I can see, I shudder to think what will happen to our banks, what will happen to our savings rate, what will happen to our middle class, which is working so hard. So the time has come that the government probably may have to think about without disturbing the independence. See, the independence of RBI is distinct from having an oversight body that will look into the functioning, where probably a public hearing can be done, where people can go, and most importantly, fix accountability. That is the key. In any democracy, we need to fix accountability on persons. If we think that everything is hand of God, we are done in for sure. So we need to fix accountability. We can't say that we can't do much about it. This is a very vexatious question, or this is something that we can't touch it. There are so many things involved. Yes, it is a complex issue, but we are also competent. We have competent minds. We have competent people. We have good lawyers, chartered accountants, and there are so many qualified people, technocrats, who can fix the whole thing. It's not that all is lost. But sir, it has come to a stage where you have to step in, and you will. It is as big, if not bigger, than 2G, sir. If last decade you did the 2G, I can assure you, sir, this is as big, if not bigger, than 2G. So the nation awaits your action, sir.
I have something to add to what Dr. Venkatesh is saying. One is that there has been a lot of thinking that has happened on this aspect. So there was the FSLRC, the Financial Sector Legislative Reforms Committee, and one of the things that it said is, there's too much of overlap in regulation between insurance, SEBI, for instance, what auditors do or what rating agencies do, it cuts across and it affects investors everywhere. So supervision has to be taken out from all these people and put into an independent body. I think when your case comes up for hearing, I'm sure somebody is going to come up with that and say that, you already had these discussions, it has not been implemented. So that part of it, maybe it's time that this government wishes to implement. That's one part. The second is I have a slightly, I'm not very sure whether this oversight body is actually going to work, because I feel that, Parliament is, we know that most parliamentarians don't understand economics, banking, finance, and everything. But, when they are made to be subject to public scrutiny. So in the US, you have Senate hearings which are on live television. So even a senator who may not understand finance has a list of questions to appear intelligent, and he will ask tough questions over there because he wants to be seen as tough. And the whole country knows what kind of answers the regulators are giving. So I think before we come to oversight, even if we start having these televised questioning of all the regulators even twice a year, it will make such a difference in terms of transparency and accountability.
Before I go to Arvind and ask him to take over, and of course Jagdish and Ramesh, just want to tell you that parliamentary committees is not, MPs are not alone, but they just don't know how to tap into the vast staff that is being provided. They are very knowledgeable people. The moment they know that you are got the absorptive capacity to take in their knowledge, they do wonders for you. I've been doing this on health committee, for example, and civil aviation committee, and they come up with all this material, which even my MP colleagues, MPs, they are surprised, where did you get all this? Which is the staff which gives it, and ultimately the report is prepared by them. So I don't think that MPs need to know the subject if they are ready to sort of articulate what is given to them by the staff of the committee. And the staff of the committee is quite independent, because Parliament is generally independent, at least more than anyone else. So there's a good suggestion you made, and I think we should look for ways to implement it. Arvind, you want to say something?
I have a very important question for the benefit of the common viewers. Recently, we have been hearing about the NPAs, and we have been talking about the concept of bad bank. More than 2 lakh crores of public money is going to be looked after by this bad bank. Now, what is this concept? Can all three of you experts in this field explain to the common man how it is going to solve the NPAs over a period of time? And as a concept, it's supposed to be taking time and recovering this NPAs, and then it will become, when will the bad bank become good bank?
Sucheta ji, I'm sure you know the answer to that.
No, it's too vast a subject, and we have written an article by an expert on it who says that it's more of a malady than a remedy. And I think it's worth reading. It's there on Money Life. But I think a simple thing is, every concept that is good, when we implement it, the devil is in the detail. So if it is implemented badly, and so far we've had asset reconstruction companies which haven't worked. So when you take a concept, you will use examples like Temasek of Singapore and say, look at what they did. Or you look at even post 2008, what the US did. So there was a huge bailout, but at the end of the day, the government recovered more money. It is only in India that it is only an outflow and nothing ever comes back. So when we had bad loans and, the banks were recapitalized, the government kept saying that, just because there's a write-off doesn't mean it's written off. We're still going after them. So Money Life carried a series of articles where we pointed out that your recovery is less than 10%. In fact, it's sometimes 2 and 3%. And this is because a Pune-based activist, Vivek Velankar, doggedly filed right to information applications and established this. But till then, anybody on Twitter who dared to say that, look, you're writing off, they had people in government, including the former finance minister, shouldn't talk about someone who is no more, but Arun Jaitley was out there ridiculing them, saying that we're going to get the money back. What have we got? Not even 5%. So I think this bad bank as a concept may be good. Again, without accountability, how are you going to ensure that it works?
Yeah. Well, Arvind, anything more, or Ramesh has something to say?
Yeah. Dr. Swami, trust me, this week I spent so much of time reading about this. It's fascinating because, as Suchita, you know, there's this new hearing going on in the US about this fraud. Not a fraud, essentially the trading challenge that we had with GameStop and stuff like that. So, where the hearings by the Congress was immediate. It's not that they waited for 6 months, 1 year for this thing to happen.
Exactly.
All said and done, it's political posturing, it's fine, but at the end of the day, at least public is saying, okay, something is being done, whether they do the right thing or not. So it's important that, that nobody is immune to this. I mean, people are just walking away, the Wall Street firms are walking away with abject fraud on this, but anyway, nothing can be, let's see where it goes. Because you brought out the most important aspect is the immunity. There's a perceived immunity of RBI. Actually, there's no immunity for anybody. Everybody is equal under law. I mean, I'm assuming that is the case. But there is a perception, be it the judiciary, be it the common public, be it even within the government or the parliament, they think this RBI cannot be sued or brought to court at all. There seems to have perceived immunity. They have some cases which I went through that they have some section under Banking Regulation Act or something that they have immunity not to show. I think 34A part 1 of the law says that the banks have some kind of immunity, but that is being extended beyond what their job needs to be. It's not that nobody's asking you to open up everybody's bank account and show me, but moving it away from saying that you have broad immunity because of this is just uncalled for. I think Dr. Swami's PIL is going to break open that myth, saying that the RBI is untouchable. It needs to be touchable. And second, I completely agree with you, Suchita, that it cannot be another body. It has to be under the parliament. And then, as Dr. Swami showed with example, with his health thing, there are enough experts within the government. If not, the government can seek experts from outside and bring these people to task, put them in a public hearing, televise it live all over the country. Then people will wake up. Otherwise, it's just going to keep one scam after another. MRV, regarding Kingfisher, the RBI is still investigating whether the Kingfisher is live or not. They're waiting for it to fly. So that is why it is still, they don't know the value, right? Unless you know the value, right? They have to determine the value. So they're just waiting for the Kingfisher to know whether it's fly. I just want to share one thing, MRV, that what you said, I mean, this is the latest report from RBI. Just imagine. So is that 1.85 trillion close to 2G scam level?
Yes, that will be the amount. 180. I have filed an RTI. And they say somewhere around 2 lakh crores, which is what we have brought it out in Dr. Swami's.
I mean, we have a lot of growth, Dr. Swami. We have phenomenal growth, 159% growth. At least we should have got Atmanirbhar is nothing. Look at this Atmanirbhar, Dr. Swami. 159% growth in bank frauds in just 1 year.
Sure.
And we are accelerating. I mean, these kind of numbers are just ridiculous.
These numbers are frightening. I can say, Ramesh, these numbers are frightening. And this shows that completely there is some sort of a tacit or even more than tacit, an absolute connivance by the RBI with all these fraudsters and scamsters. This cannot happen if RBI has or uses all the instrumentalities available under the Banking Regulation Act. But using even a fraction of it, and if it's using all the resources that is given to it under the law, these type of scams are impossible. And trying, I know, all of us know a bit of audit, all of us know a bit of oversight. We have been there. We know what's happening around. These numbers are telling a tale by themselves. They are telling that RBI is virtually non-existent.
The government, the RBI puts up some nonsense. I mean, like being in the FERA side of it, they go after the smallest exporter and importer, file thousands of cases on that fellow. He'd just be importing yarn or something, but leave big frauds like this to just go. I mean, there is nobody. RBI is supposed to be a lot of thinkers and a lot of people with brains. I think they have a lot of brains, but no activity. I mean, it becomes a cushion job. It's very pathetic for which, I mean, Suchita, have you known anywhere where RBI has brought in, I mean, they're not supposed to be adjudicators of law. They're supposed to bring in, they find significant, anybody who's gone to jail where RBI has recommended, where they said that this is a total fraud?
See, the point is they do that, but they do it after the fact. So, when a fraud has happened, they are suddenly the investigators and they are punishing people. But I feel that that's not your job. You are first supposed to supervise. You're sitting on the same role. And it is happening with all our regulators. It's happening with SEBI. It's happening with RBI. It's happening with ILDO. But the losses when it comes to RBI, it's significantly larger. It's happening in SEBI also. You can't be both, sitting on boards, making the regulation, failing to
Right.
support, and then suddenly turning into the policeman who's going to impose fines.
MRV, before you
Ramesh.
jump in, MRV, before you jump
Yes.
in. So basically, RBI is no accountability for failures.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Ramesh,
Yeah.
it is
They
like,
have accountability, but there's no one there to take them into account.
yes. Ramesh, RBI
When a
is
matter of public interest arises, there is no immunity for anybody,
Yeah.
even if it is there in the act.
Yeah.
That is what we proved in the 2G spectrum. There's no immunity. There's no finality if public interest is violated.
No, but I agree, Dr. Swami. It's just that there is a perception, the courts, like what Sucheta said, the court, RBI knows what they're doing, kind of a concept, right? I mean, the judges are afraid to take up, oh my God, this RBI is, we shouldn't touch. What if they come back and bombard us with the, 1,000 pieces of data points or something? Why you accuse, I mean, you just have a amicus curiae on your side. Nothing is stopping you from doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead,
Anyone
MRV. I
else?
didn't want to interrupt you. Go ahead, MRV. You said you were about to say something.
No, Jagdish was going to say something.
No,
Yeah,
MRV
yeah.
wanted to complete a point, Dr. Swami.
Oh, yeah,
No,
sorry.
I said simply RBI is like the policeman in the yesteryear Hindi film, coming in the 15th reel and saying "Koi hilna nahi." No, in the sense, don't move. I'm knowing all along. At least the Hindi movie, the police wouldn't know what was happening, but here RBI was, karyakarta of every damn thing which is happening in the bank. It is sitting on the board. It's getting all the information, appointing auditors, monitoring, regulating, doing everything. But at the final instant, it says it sucks its thumb and says, "I don't know anything." That's a very sorry state of affairs.
Yeah, they know what's happening on participatory notes, but they won't do anything about it.
But sir, on participatory notes, in the Lahiri panel, RBI gave a dissenting note to the existence of participatory note. That is one time RBI stood up and to say that, that's one dissent note I have. And I think to the eternal credit of RBI that RBI stood up. But yes, after that, the watchdog has refused to bark.
Larry must have been sent home.
I have a very simple and a common question, which is basically the thread between all the reactions which we are hearing or seeing on our screens. The common man wants to know, when he goes to a bank or a cooperative bank, how is he sure that his money is safe in the bank? Most of the viewers are asking this question because there are a lot of cooperative banks, especially cooperative banks. If RBI has no role or nothing, then the scams will keep on happening and the people will lose money. In fact, Bombay and Bangalore or many other cities, or Gujarat also, there are a lot of these scams. So they want to know from Dr. Swamy or Mr. Dr. Venkatesh and Suchita ji, and she has been very active in her various organizations she has been associated with. What is the common man to do? Which bank should he go to deposit it? Is there some barometer or some indicator he has to see and then go and deposit his hard-earned money?
So, Sucheta, you start, then Venkatesh.
Okay, so there are 2-3 things. One is that for the last 10 years that we have had Money Life Foundation, we used to say at every seminar, do not put your money in cooperative banks because they are under dual regulation. And dual regulation means that neither of them regulates. Okay, so it's been a problem. And we said if the bank is right next to you and it's convenient, make sure it's not more than 1 lakh in that bank, because that is covered by the deposit insurance guarantee. Now that's gone up to 5 lakhs. So you're little safer, but don't keep more than 5 lakhs. The second thing we have said is that when, the whole deposit insurance guarantee corporation and its structure itself is skewed. So they just pass you off. It's become from 1 to 5 lakhs. I would say that the problem has to an extent reduced because the highest number of banks in the country, over 1,000 of them, are cooperative banks. Now they have all come under single regulation by the RBI just over a year ago. So today RBI has no more excuses. They have to regulate cooperative banks. And if cooperative banks continue to fail like this, we have a huge problem on our hand, because they are not like 20 nationalized banks which have been reduced to half by merging them. You have over 1,000 of them. So they better get serious about supervision over there, and we are going to watch it because it's all happened in the last few months. We're just starting, and so they have the residual stuff. But I must say, this is one good thing that the government has done, that there's no dual regulation anymore, and we can look forward to things. But the more important question is, where do I put my money and where is it safe? So we used to say that India is lucky. 45% of our banking is nationalized banks, and doesn't matter if the net worth is fully eroded, your money is safe. The
It's insured.
No, it's a tacit government guarantee, right? So we've had Indian Bank and
under
other
the Visa Act, right? They have like an FDIC, like in the US, so they have something like that, right?
No, it's not that. It's just that because it is government owned, it's ultimately President of India owns it. So you remember Indian Bank, the net worth was fully eroded, but not a single deposit went out of the bank because nothing happened to the bank. People kept the money, it was safe. You don't allow it to sink because it's nationalized. And every budget, you recapitalize it by putting earlier it used to be 10,000 and 20,000 crore. Now it's lakhs of crores to recapitalize them. It couldn't go on. So now you're privatizing. The minute you privatize, you have a big problem on your hand. If the RBI continues to be unaccountable and it fails, so ILFS was 1 lakh crore almost, right? So tomorrow it can be any of your big banks. You don't know what was happening, or rather, as Dr. Venkatesh said, everybody knew what was happening in Yes Bank, but people pretended not to until it finally fully collapsed. If that happens with any of our large banks, we have serious trouble because you can't bail them out. So they talk about things like bail-in, we'll use depositors' money. Luckily, they have not passed that legislation as yet. So in a nutshell, if you want me to answer the question, what do I do with my money? Honestly, today they've roiled the system so much that I wouldn't know. I would say you have to be eternally vigilant. You have to keep listening to the gossip. You have to listen to what is happening in the market. If you are worried, move your money. And maybe up to 5 lakhs is safe, but otherwise it is not safe anymore. You will have to be careful. That's the simple truth.
Dr. Swamy, one question. Jagdishji, sorry. This is more to Sucheta and MRV. What is this RBI transferring 1,75,000 crores to the government? I mean, forced to,
where deposits.
So where does it? Why is the government forcing the RBI to put the money into the government? If RBI is an independent body, and what authority is the government saying that the RBI should pump money into the government?
No, I think
Venkatesh.
The answer best because those are surpluses of the RBI. I think Dr. Swamy, that's your area.
I understand, but why?
No, I know that the banks are and the government they have deposits in the Reserve Bank, some 3 lakh crores or something like that.
But are they pulling their own money out? Is that what you're saying, Dr. Swamy?
No. It's something.
No,
like
they're getting loans.
Dividends.
Go ahead, MRV. Sorry.
It's something like this. The RBI, for instance, might have taken in gold at say 1,000 rupees a gram. Today, a gram is worth say 4,500 rupees. Eventually, it has made a profit of 3,500 rupees. Simple.
Okay.
Now, government says, I'm the owner of the bank, RBI, so give that as dividends to me. Simple. I'm saying simple calculation.
Yeah.
There are several assets on which there is a dollar RBI would have purchased at 40 rupees. Today it's 75 rupees. Technically, RBI has made a profit of 35 rupees to the dollar. It's a cold accountant's calculation. There is a foreign currency revaluation reserve account in the RBI, which is a very interesting document. If the dollar depreciates, RBI profits. Simple, because RBI purchases at 75 rupees and the dollar goes to 95 rupees. The biggest beneficiary will be RBI because it gets 20 rupees as profit. And government takes that profit out of it and says that please fund for our yojanas and this yojana and that yojana, which are nothing but bhojana for so many people.
But it's essentially.
I have another last question. And Suchita, being from Mumbai and Maharashtra, she will understand this. Maharashtra is very popular having this cooperative movement, that is cooperative societies. And city like Bombay has cooperative housing societies. So the regulation is that if a cooperative housing society, or it can be in another society, wants to have their deposits in a cooperative bank, then that income is the interest they earn is tax free, and it's a large system in Maharashtra. Unfortunately, they have to invest it in a cooperative bank. The moment they shift the deposit to a nationalized bank, the benefit, or they have to pay income tax on the earning. So what has happened is people are forced to first go to the cooperative banks, and because of the way the cooperative banks are sinking, it becomes very difficult. Even people are trying to remove money even from good cooperative banks and trying to shift it to government. This is a big issue. I don't know whether the central government even will think of allowing deposits in nationalized banks to be allowed for cooperative societies, because Suchita will tell us in Maharashtra, the cooperative societies are a big thing, in housing societies as well as
Yeah.
various others, sugar factories, premises cooperative, and any idea on this, Suchita ji, or any view on this?
No, so a lot of societies lost money heavily in Punjab and Maharashtra Cooperative Bank, right? Because it was a very well-run bank in terms of its services. It used to be open 360 days a year and open till 9 in the night, and had a core banking system. So people put their money there. So this is a question that we get asked all the time. And I think barring the top 2 or 3, that in Maharashtra, we've had scandals in, even the apex cooperative bank of the state, and
Yes.
it was fully politicized. So the reason for not, and this is the reason why dual supervision did not work, because very powerful politicians used to ensure that RBI didn't do anything. So the fact that it's now under RBI means that RBI will have to supervise, have to stand up to the politicians, because the cooperative movement still continues to be dominated by politicians. RBI will have to show its muscle. And I said it's all too new. So we don't know what's going to happen. The safe thing just now is that there are maybe 3 or 4 cooperative banks which are doing extremely well. They're as good as scheduled banks and nationalized banks. One has to put the money there, and all good societies need to understand and put the money there.
I just want to bring one important point to the notice of the panel and others viewers. How irresponsible is RBI in manning the common man's deposits. We have lockers in the banks. Just 2 days back, Supreme Court came up with a decision and asking RBI to frame the rules, which RBI has not done for 70 years. Supreme Court has framed the rules for lockers. A person lost the money in the locker in 1974. The case went on from different courts, and now the Supreme Court has given the ruling that RBI should come up with some standard procedures, working procedures. Now, this is the status of affairs of RBI controlling the banks and the common man's accounts.
Yes.
Well, we have taken a lot of time.
Yeah,
but
but last
Overflowing.
last point to M.R.Venkatesh, he has mentioned about the PIL filed by Dr. Swami, and we had a discussion offline also, and he mentioned it here. Lot of people are saying whether my bank thing has been included in the PIL. Perhaps Venkatesh will tell the viewers what is the idea behind the PIL, and why is it not that we are not mentioning or not asking for specific relief related to one bank. Please, Venkatesh, can you just enlighten our viewers on this thing, especially some banks in Bombay or Mumbai or Bangalore and other places? If you tell us, our viewers, what exactly is the idea behind this PIL?
See, we thought about it, whether we should go and enlist all these camps, various, or we should limit it and focus it on 10 major examples.
Right.
And we dwelled upon this for a variety of reasons, which, as I said, would give us a different type of failures in different steps. For example, we have chosen one NBFC, we have chosen bank, we have chosen one scam, we have chosen some of the biggest known scams in this country. We're chosen somewhere around 2000, 2500 score of an NBFC. So all these things to give a broad perspective into variety of issues. This is not to focus on bank after bank after bank or cooperative. We wanted to give a broad picture. And in this, for instance, let us take the Nirav Modi scam. The Nirav Modi scam was one thing where the RBI admitted that they were not auditing the letter of guarantee or letter of comfort given by Nirav Modi to the Punjab and National Bank for almost 10 years. That leg was never scrutinized or put to audit. And after Nirav Modi episode came to picture, came to public knowledge, the RBI started auditing that. So we wanted to focus on that type of things where there is complete confession audit, which was all brought about, so that we in a public interest litigation, we have to take care of so many things. Believe me, all those whose names have been missed out, it is not deliberate. Dr. Swami did not do it by design. We went through with a particular logic. Okay, you may fault logic, but we can't say that we have missed you out deliberately. And probably we may prepare an extra list and give it to the Supreme Court once the hearing starts and once the case is at.
Once notice is issued.
So this is the first step. This is not the end game. So please hold your horses. We will definitely come back to you and take all those details once the hearing starts, and we can go back to Supreme Court with further details.
M.R.V., there's just a question on your screen. Can you just quickly read? I don't want to go through the whole thing. I mean,
who is getting all the money made up by NPCL? What about the money tax on transaction out of UPI? Are we saving a lot after some transaction are transferred from Visa or MasterCard to RuPay network? See, something which I don't have public knowledge and hard evidences. I don't want to go into market gossips and comment about these things. We should not. I would rather go into something in depth and then come about and answer this. Probably, if something is there, if they can send it to me, I will look into it and then answer this.
Arvind?
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Swami. Thank you, Sucheta ji. Thank you, M.R.Venkatesh. This subject is so exhausting. I mean, every person who deals with the bank has some issue with the bank. And when the banks do not deliver the justice, there is some body called ombudsman. Nobody has even seen or heard of this ombudsman, which is this institution in air, in vacuum. And therefore, RBI has a lot to answer. And on every issue, Prime Minister Modi started by saying that Jan Dhan Yojana, everybody should be part of the banking system. But the way the private banks are charging the common man, the services charges which has gone off everything, for small trader is almost 1% of the transaction. I mean, the 1% per month of the transaction. So every service is being charged. So there are so many issues. And one major issue, I'm sure Dr. Swami's PIL will cover this and directly or indirectly, the Notebandi. Notebandi was the biggest fraud which RBI I would say RBI mismanaged, and with full knowledge of people in the country, in the power, those who have in the decision making. But this Notebandi is still a mystery even after 4 years.
Yeah.
So I'm sure there should be a supplement to this PIL about this Notebandi issue. But anyway, as I said, RBI touches almost everybody, not directly but indirectly. And this is such a vast issue that it cannot be covered in one program. Even we have crossed 75 minutes. Thank you, all the three panelists, Dr. Swami, Dr. Venkatesh and Sucheta ji, and my co-host Jagdish Shetty and Ramesh Swami for bringing those issues together. Many viewers are asking questions, and some questions were taken up, but all the questions could not be taken up. Maybe at some other point in time, as the PIL progresses, we will take up this issue once again to apprise the viewers about the developments in the PIL, and we'll discuss those issues also. Thank you very much. We'll be meeting again next Saturday in Nyaya Gyan Ganga, and Sunday in the next episode of Gyan Ganga with a new issue. Thanks to the technical team headed by Ashish Shetty, Ishwar Iyer, Gadgi Rakesh, Tejas, Swaminathan, and Vishal Mehta. We'll be meeting again next Saturday. Till then, Namaskar, Jai Hind.
Jai Hind.